Top 7 Most Inspirational and Motivational Speeches. Top 7 Best Motivational Speeches.
No matter how positive a person you are, sometimes it's just difficult to feel motivated. It doesn't matter if it's a rainy day, a slow Monday, or just a day where you need a little extra inspo. A good motivational speech can transform your outlook.
What does motivational speech mean?
A motivational speech serves as a means to ignite inspiration among individuals. It can encompass a wide range of topics as long as its primary goal is to encourage the audience to take action.
One notable example of motivational speeches is found in TED Talks, which aim to educate and inspire their viewers. Numerous motivational speeches can be found across the internet, showcasing a diverse array of themes and styles. Additionally, individuals have the opportunity to craft their own motivational speeches, leveraging AI-driven feedback and practical suggestions for improvement. There's nothing better to inspire you than a good motivational speech. It doesn't matter if you're having a bad Monday or you just want an extra push to get you through the week. This type of speech is perfect for any occasion where you need a little encouragement. Here are our picks for the top 7 best motivational speeches. 1. Malala Yousafzai's Nobel Peace Prize Lecture, 2014. Malala Yousafzai, a Pakistani activist for women's education and the youngest Nobel Prize laureate in the world, was shot by a member of the Taliban in 2012. It was an assassination attempt on a 15-year-old girl. It was an assassination attempt on a 15-year-old girl in response to her activism for women's education. Incredibly, she survived the shot to the head. She continued her activism, going on to win the Nobel Peace Prize just 2 years later. In 2014, she gave an inspiring lecture when she was awarded the accolade at the Oslo City Hall, Norway. After an introduction by the chairman of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, Thorbjørn Jagland, Yousafzai took the stage to give her lecture, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most merciful, the most beneficent, Yousafzai began, beaming from the podium. Today is a great day of happiness for me. Then, she went on to speak on her dedication to advocating for equal education during the lecture. This award is not just for me, Yousafzai said. It is for those forgotten children who want education. It is for those frightened children who want peace. It is for those voiceless children who want change. I am here to stand up for their rights, to raise their voice. It is not time to pity them. This speech is one of the most moving, motivational speeches on our list. It's a compelling call to action from a teenager whose words sparked fear in one of the most notorious terrorist groups.
This award is not just for me. It is for those forgotten children who want education. It is for those frightened children who want peace. It is for those voiceless children who want change. I'm here to stand up for their rights, to raise their voice. It is not time to pity them. It is not time to pity them. It is time to take action. So it becomes the last time. The last time. So it becomes the last time that we see a child deprived of education. I have found that people describe me in many different ways. Some people call me the girl who was shot by the Taliban, and some the girl who fought for her rights. Some people call me a Nobel laureate now. However, my brothers still call me that annoying bossy sister. As far as I know, I'm just a committed and even stubborn person who wants to see every child getting quality education, who wants to see women having equal rights, and who wants peace in every corner of the world. Education is one of the blessings of life and one of its necessities. That has been my experience during the 17 years of my life. In my paradise home, Swat, I always loved learning and discovering new things. I remember when my friends and I would decorate our hands with henna on special occasions. And instead of drawing flowers and patterns, we would paint our hands with mathematical formulas and equations. We had a thirst for education. We had a thirst for education because our future was right there in that classroom. We would sit and learn and read together. We loved to wear neat and tidy school uniforms. And we would sit there with big dreams in our eyes. We wanted to make our parents proud and prove that we could also excel in our studies and achieve those goals which some people think only boys can. But things did not remain the same. When I was in Swat, which was a place of tourism and beauty, suddenly changed into a place of terrorism. I was just 10, that more than 400 schools were destroyed. Women were flogged. People were killed. And our beautiful dreams turned into nightmares. Education went from being a right to being a crime. Girls were stopped from going to school. When my world suddenly changed, my priorities changed too. I had two options. One was to remain silent and wait to be killed. And the second was to speak up and then be killed. I chose the second one. I decided to speak up. We could not just stand by and see those injustices of the terrorists, denying our rights, ruthlessly killing people, and misusing the name of Islam. We decided to raise our voice and tell them, have you not learned that in the Holy Quran Allah says, if you kill one person, it is as if you kill the whole humanity? Do you not know that Muhammad, peace be upon him, the Prophet of mercy, he says, do not harm yourself or others. And do you not know that the very first word of the Holy Quran is the word Iqra, which means read? The terrorists tried to stop us and attacked me and my friends who are here today on our school bus in 2012. But neither their ideas nor their bullets could win. We survived. And since that day, our voices have grown louder and louder. I am not a lone voice. I am not a lone voice. I am many. I am Malala, but I am also Shazia. I am Kainat. I am Kainat Somro. I am Mozoon. I am Amina. I am those 66 million girls who are deprived of education. And today, I'm not raising my voice. It is the voice of those 66 million girls. Sometimes people like to ask me, why should girls go to school? Why is it important for them? But I think the more important question is, why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't they have this right to go to school? Dear brothers and sisters, today, in half of the world, we see rapid progress and development. However, there are many countries where millions still suffer from the very old problems of war, poverty, and injustice. We still see conflicts in which innocent people lose their lives and children become orphans. We see many people becoming refugees in Syria, Gaza, and Iraq. In Afghanistan, we see families being killed in suicide attacks and bomb blasts. Many children in Africa do not have access to education because of poverty. And as I said, we still see girls who have no freedom to go to school in the north of Nigeria. Many children in countries like Pakistan and India, as Kailash Satyarthi mentioned, many children, especially in India and Pakistan, are deprived of their right to education because of social taboos, or they have been forced into child marriage or into child labor. One of my very good school friends, the same age as me, who has always been bold and confident girl, dreamed of becoming a doctor. But her dream remained a dream. At the age of 12, she was forced to get married. And then soon, she had a son. She had a child when she herself was a child, only 14. I know that she could have been a very good doctor, but she couldn't because she was a girl. Her story is why I dedicate the Nobel Peace Prize money to the Malala Fund to help give girls quality education everywhere, anywhere in the world, and to raise their voices. The first place this funding will go to is where my heart is, to build schools in Pakistan, especially in my home of Swat and Shangla. In my own village, there is still no secondary school for girls. And it is my wish and my commitment, and now my challenge, to build one so that my friends and my sisters can go there to school and get quality education, and they get this opportunity to fulfill their dreams. This is where I will begin, but it is not where I will stop. I will continue this fight until I see every child in school. Dear brothers and sisters, great people who brought change, like Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa and Aung San Suu Kyi, once stood here on this stage. I hope the steps that Kailash Satyarthi and I have taken so far and will take on this journey will also bring change, lasting change. My great hope is that this will be the last time. This will be the last time we must fight for education. Let's solve this once and for all. We have already taken many steps. Now it is time to take a leap. It is not time to tell the world leaders to realize how important education is. They already know it. Their own children are in good schools. Now it is time to call them to take action for the rest of the world's children. We ask the world leaders to unite and make education their top priority. Some will say this is impractical, or too expensive, or too hard, or maybe even impossible. But it is time the world thinks bigger. Dear sisters and brothers, the so-called world of adults may understand it, but we children don't. Why is it that countries which we call strong are so powerful in creating wars, but are so weak in bringing peace? Why is it? Why is it that giving guns is so easy, but giving books is so hard? Why is it? Why is it that making tanks is so easy, but building schools is so hard? We are living in the modern age, and we believe that nothing is impossible. We have reached the moon 45 years ago, and maybe we'll soon land on Mars. Then, in this 21st century, we must be able to give every child quality education. Dear sisters and brothers, dear fellow children, we must work, not wait. Not just the politicians and the world leaders. We all need to contribute. Me, you, we. It is our duty. Let us become the first generation to decide to be the last. Let us become the first generation that decides to be the last, that sees empty classrooms, lost childhoods, and wasted potentials. Let this be the last time that a girl or a boy spends their childhood in a factory. Let this be the last time that a girl is forced into early child marriage. Let this be the last time that a child loses life in war. Let this be the last time that we see a child out of school. Let this end with us. Let's begin this ending together, today, right here, right now. Let's begin this ending now. Thank you so much. Thank you.
2. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream motivational speech, 1963. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a Baptist minister and a prominent advocate for black rights, delivered his iconic I Have a Dream speech in August 1963. Standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial during the Civil Rights Movement, King addressed a massive crowd, urging the nation's leaders to confront racism, injustice, and oppression against the black community. His words expressed a steadfast determination for equality and justice, envisioning a future where all individuals are treated as equals. King's speech not only inspired those present, but also became a pivotal moment in the history of the United States, fueling the drive for change.
Arguably, the most famous motivational speech of all time is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech in August of 1963. He delivered this influential speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial at the height of the Civil Rights Movement to a crowd of hundreds of thousands of people.
King was a Baptist minister and an advocate for black rights. Among his many achievements, he was a driving force in the fight for equal rights during the Civil Rights Movement of the 50s-60s. He led marches for not only civil rights, but also for labor rights, the right to vote, and desegregation. In his motivational speech, King calls on the nation's leaders to take a stand against the racism, injustice, and oppression targeting the Black community. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream, King said. Even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. King's speech wasn't only inspiring to those in the audience. It encouraged change and is a pivotal moment in U.S. history.
So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is a faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
3. Oprah Winfrey, the famed talk show host, author, and television producer, won the Cecil B. DeMille Award in 2018 for outstanding contributions to the world of entertainment.
In addition, Winfrey has been called the most powerful woman by both Time and Con, and was named one of the most influential people by Time from 2004 to 2011. USA Today has also recognized her as the influential black person of the last quarter century. In her motivational speech, Winfrey expressed gratitude for all the women, especially those who have endured abuse, and spoke on injustice in the past and present. She also referenced Reese Taylor, a black woman who was kidnapped and raped by 6 armed white men, and her enduring strength and work with Rosa Parks.
I've interviewed and portrayed people who've withstood some of the ugliest things life can throw at you, but the one quality all of them seem to share is an ability to maintain hope for a brighter morning, even during our darkest nights, she said. I've always tried my best to say something about how men and women really behave, to say how we experienced shame, how we love, and how we rage, how we fail, how we retreat, persevere, and how we overcome.
Thank you. In 1964, I was a little girl sitting on the linoleum floor of my mother's house in Milwaukee, watching Anne Bancroft present the Oscar for Best Actor at the 36th Academy Awards. She opened the envelope and said 5 words that literally made history. The winner is Sidney Poitier. Up to the stage came the most elegant man I had ever seen. I remember his tie was white, and of course his skin was black, and I'd never seen a black man being celebrated like that. And I have tried many times to explain what a moment like that means to a little girl, a kid watching from the cheap seats as my mom came through the door, bone-tired from cleaning other people's houses. But all I can do is quote and say that the explanation in Sidney's performance in Lilies of the Field, amen, 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 amen. In 1982, Sidney received the Cecil B. DeMille Award right here at the Golden Globes, and it is not lost on me that at this moment, there are some little girls watching as I become the first black woman to be given the same award. It is an honor. It is an honor, and it is a privilege to share the evening with all of them, and also with the incredible men and women who've inspired me, who've challenged me, who've sustained me and made my journey to this stage possible. Dennis Swanson, who took a chance on me for AM Chicago. Quincy Jones, who saw me on that show and said to Steven Spielberg, yes, she is Sophia in The Color Purple. Gail, who's been the definition of what a friend is, and Stedman, who's been my rock, just a few to name. I'd like to thank the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, because we all know that the press is under siege these days. But we also know that it is the insatiable dedication to uncovering the absolute truth that keeps us from turning a blind eye to corruption and to injustice, to tyrants and victims and secrets and lies. I want to say that I value the press more than ever before as we try to navigate these complicated times, which brings me to this. What I know for sure is that speaking your truth is the most powerful tool we all have. And I'm especially proud and inspired by all the women who have felt strong enough and empowered enough to speak up and share their personal stories. Each of us in this room are celebrated because of the stories that we tell. And this year, we became the story. But it's not just a story affecting the entertainment industry. It's one that transcends any culture, geography, race, religion, politics, or workplace. So I want tonight to express gratitude to all the women who have endured years of abuse and assault because they, like my mother, had children to feed and bills to pay and dreams to pursue. They're the women whose names we'll never know. They are domestic workers and farm workers. They are working in factories, and they work in restaurants, and they're in academia and engineering and medicine and science. They're part of the world of tech and politics and business. There are athletes in the Olympics, and there are soldiers in the military. And there's someone else, Recy Taylor. A name I know, and I think you should know too. In 1944, Recy Taylor was a young wife and a mother. She was just walking home from a church service. She'd attended in Abbeville, Alabama, when she was abducted by 6 armed white men, raped and left blindfolded by the side of the road, coming home from church. They threatened to kill her if she ever told anyone. But her story was reported to the NAACP, where a young worker by the name of Rosa Parks became the lead investigator on her case. And together, they sought justice. But justice wasn't an option in the era of Jim Crow. The men who tried to destroy her were never persecuted. Recy Taylor died 10 days ago, just shy of her 98th birthday. She lived, as we all have lived, too many years in a culture broken by brutally powerful men. For too long, women have not been heard or believed if they dared to speak their truth to the power of those men. But their time is up. Their time is up. Their time is up. And I just hope that Recy Taylor died knowing that her truth, like the truth of so many other women who were tormented in those years, and even now tormented, goes marching on. It was somewhere in Rosa Parks' heart almost 11 years later when she made the decision to stay seated on that bus in Montgomery. And it's here with every woman who chooses to say, "Me too." And every man who chooses to listen. In my career, what I've always tried my best to do, whether on television or through film, is to say something about how men and women really behave, to say how we experience shame, how we love and how we rage, how we fail, how we retreat, persevere, and how we overcome. And I've interviewed and portrayed people who've withstood some of the ugliest things life can throw at you, but the one quality all of them seem to share is an ability to maintain hope for a brighter morning, even during our darkest nights. So I want all the girls watching here and now to know that a new day is on the horizon. And when that new day finally dawns, it will be because of a lot of magnificent women, many of whom are right here in this room tonight, and some pretty phenomenal men fighting hard to make sure that they become the leaders who take us to the time when nobody ever has to say, "Me too," again. Thank you.
4. Nyle DiMarco's TED Talk on Education, Access for Deaf Children, 2019. Nyle DiMarco, an actor, model, and deaf activist, gave a TED Talk in American Sign Language 2019 centered around education access to children who are deaf.
DiMarco walked the runway at Milan Fashion Week for Giorgio Armani. In 2014, DiMarco was the first deaf contestant to win America's Next Top Model.
Then he won the Mirrorball Trophy during Dancing with the Stars in 2016. 3 years later, he took the stage for TED. Drawing from personal experiences, DiMarco described the obstacles he encountered growing up deaf and shared his aspiration to improve the lives of deaf children worldwide. He emphasized the necessity of collective action, urging the audience to become allies in creating a more inclusive and knowledgeable world. DiMarco's talk shed light on the millions of deaf children deprived of education opportunities, urging society to fight alongside them to ensure a brighter future. Across the globe, there are millions of children who are deaf and lack education access. DiMarco used his experiences growing up deaf to describe the obstacles he faced. He also shared one of his biggest aspirations: to better the lives of deaf children. "I'm working to give every deaf child in the world a future filled with a rich language and the opportunities I was lucky enough to receive," he signed. But the deaf community cannot do it alone. We need you to become our allies and join us in making the world more knowledgeable. We need you to join us, to fight with us and for us in the ongoing battle of affording children what they need to thrive.
I'd like to tell you a story. When I was 24, I found myself living in a small beach town by the name of Naples, Florida. I was looking for something new. I was 24. I'm 29 now. And in that small coastal town, I was the only deaf resident. In fact, the closest deaf person was a few hours away by car. And all of the friends and acquaintances that I had made could hear. I didn't mind though. I wanted something new. Lucky for me, Naples, Florida is home to some of the US Olympics volleyball team, where they reside and train through the year. So I had a fantastic opportunity to play with them every day I could. And we'd hit the court all the time, either indoors or out at the beach. It was great. Lucky for them, I happen to be very good at volleyball. So, one night, after a great game, a friend and I pull up some chairs by the water to watch the sun go down and chat. And he looks over at me and he asks me a question that completely blew me away. To be honest, in 24 years of my life, nobody had ever asked me. And his question was simple. Have you ever wished you could hear? I looked at him for a second and thought, where did that come from? Then I took a moment and I realized, while we had been sitting there, I could see the waves coming in and crashing on the beach. He could hear that. Obviously I couldn't. My entire world is completely silent. To our left, people had taken over the court and were playing volleyball, cheering each other on. To our right, a mother was playing and laughing with her baby. And behind us, cars and ATVs had passed by all day without me even noticing. So I was quick to answer, no, of course not. I've never wished I could hear. I've never wished that because I love who I am. And you may be wondering, how do I love myself as a deaf man? Well, first, I was born deaf. My deafness shaped my childhood, and it's all I've ever known. So my perspective on life and my experience of the world is very different. My outlook and my life has involved experiences that many of you have never had to encounter as hearing people. My culture, something I embody and cherish, has always been deaf. My perspective on life is completely different. The experiences I've had, something I hold most dear, have taught me to love myself as a deaf man. To illustrate that point, if I were to walk into a job interview with a panel of hearing peers, and if I were to approach that meeting wishing that I could hear, wishing that I could speak like them, and focusing on that imbalance, do you think I would do very well? Obviously not, right? Because in the back of my mind, I'm focusing on the negative, therefore creating a negative outcome. and I'm certain I wouldn't get that job. But if instead I use my difference as an advantage and an asset, I know that as a deaf man, I have so much to offer their company. My experiences growing up are much different from theirs, and knowing that allows me to approach the interview positive. I can go into that meeting and confidently tell them how they will benefit from hiring a deaf man for a multitude of reasons, and I can walk out with that job, because it's all about mindset. So I say first and foremost, to love yourself. So as I mentioned, the first reason I love myself is my upbringing. But many of you may not know that I come from a rather large family. I have 2 brothers who are also deaf, along with my parents, my grandparents, and yes, even my great-grandparents as well. I'm the 4th generation in a beautiful family with over 25 deaf members. Born to deaf parents who understood the deaf experience, they knew exactly how to raise me. They knew how to provide me with the best opportunities and to support me. From day one of my existence, my parents gave me language, access to education, and love. Growing up, my life was perfect. Imagine, like many of you, born to hearing parents, I never noticed barriers that simply weren't there. I'm sure many of you felt your life was normal, the same way that I did. Coming from a deaf family, my world, in every way, was a utopia. When it came time for my parents to enroll me in school, they already knew that I would go to the deaf school. I would learn in an environment that was designed for me. At that time, all of my peers and teachers, and even the superintendent was deaf. So, I was still in my perfect world. I was in an environment where I could grow and where I could thrive. And I had no problems. It was perfect for me. And many people don't believe that, but it's true. For me, the deaf community, our world, was the perfect world for me. And I remember in the summer before 5th grade, I was ready to go back to school and I asked my mom to go to a public school. She thought I was crazy. She said, "What? No. Public school, it's all hearing kids. The deaf school is a perfect fit." And I said, "No, I want to learn what those students are learning. I want to see what their classrooms are like. What are public school teachers like?" So upon my insistence, she enrolled me. And after 2 weeks of frustration, I came home pleading to go back to the deaf school. She listened very sympathetically and told me, "Nope, too bad." I was floored. She told me that I needed to stick it out for a year because I needed to learn how to interact with my hearing peers, and that if I gave it a little patience, I would learn so much about the world around me, because the reality is, the world is hearing. I was the only deaf kid in the entire school. Of course, I always had hearing friends, but they could sign like me. So that year I gained a lot of insight. I couldn't be involved in any of the school organizations. My friends never learned enough sign to communicate. And every time I tried to play a sport, I'd get benched. The basketball coach told me a deaf kid could never help the team win a game. And I was athletic. So after a year, I went back to the deaf school, where I realized that's my home. That's my community, and my community is where I can thrive. I got involved in the classroom again, joined a bunch of school organizations, and got back on the basketball team where I helped win many games. So it's without hesitation that I can say the deaf community is in fact my home. After graduating high school, I was accepted into the only deaf university in the world, Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. It was there I gained my degree in mathematics with the intention of becoming a better teacher than the ones I had growing up. Like many of you, I sat through some math teachers who seriously sucked. I wanted to be a good math teacher, but I also wanted to be a good role model for those students. So as time got closer to graduation, of course I was nervous. I started questioning if I had made the right decision. And I decided to get out of my comfort zone and to travel the world. Since then, I've been to over 43 countries. And the funny thing about when I travel is that I'm constantly meeting hearing people who say, "Nyle, you are so brave. How do you travel like this? Isn't it hard to be deaf and travel? It looks impossible." And let me tell you, traveling as a deaf person, I think, is actually much easier than traveling for hearing people. Because sign language is something that gives me access to a much larger world. I'll tell you one of my favorite stories. A few years ago, I was in South Sicily, perusing a flea market, when I walked into a butcher shop, and standing there is an American tourist trying to ask the butcher where the meat he was slicing is sourced from. So the Sicilian man, speaking no English, is gesturing, right? And you know Italians gesture. He's trying to explain where the meat comes from, and it's going right over the head of the tourist. So watching this very comical breakdown in conversation, I'm understanding everything perfectly. So I pull out a paper and a pen, and I translate what the butcher is saying, and I hand it over to the tourist and explain, this is what he's trying to tell you. So there I am, the deaf person, translating for two hearing people. And in that situation, they're the ones disabled, not me. While that story is ironic, it happens so many times when I meet people in other countries. I'm always amazed to meet locals in other countries and their ability to gesticulate and communicate with me, often quite easily. And I would always tell myself to visit the local deaf schools and to make time to meet deaf locals. But with every new deaf school that I saw, I was sad to see that their schools were in terrible condition and their education was greatly lacking. Often, I just couldn't believe my eyes. When I would meet deaf adults, I realized a common thread very quickly. They either didn't have the same level of education I did, or their language was incomplete, making it hard to communicate. They'd often complain to me that the system had failed them, and now they struggled to find work. And I kept asking myself, why is this happening, and why is this happening so often? Why am I somehow more fortunate? Growing up, I thought every deaf person in the world was like me and had the same opportunities that I did. So in returning to the United States, I decided to do some research on the topic, and what I found shocked me. There are currently more than 70 million deaf people in the world, with only 2% of them having access to education in sign languages, which means millions upon millions of deaf children not receiving the education they need, also known as education deprivation. I also learned that over 75% of hearing parents don't sign to communicate with their deaf children, which is astonishing. Again, imagine millions and millions of deaf children without an education, without a language. Those children without language and access to education exhibit signs of brain damage. In my research, I also found that I'm a part of an even smaller group. 10% of deaf children come from deaf parents like mine. Only 10%. I'm incredibly lucky. I had access to language, an education, and I had parents who loved me and put me on a path to success. I wouldn't be who I am today without any of those things. So it was clear to me that something needed to be done. I got to work in setting up my own foundation, the Nyle DiMarco Foundation, with the goal of improving the lives of millions of deaf people around the world. We've since partnered with another deaf organization in the United States to introduce legislation, a bill that requires all deaf children have access to language between the ages of 0 and 5, setting up benchmarks for their success. Because before the age of 5, children have the ability to acquire a foundation in language, readying them for the classroom and for a successful life. After the age of 5, that critical language acquisition window closes. I'm working to give every deaf child in the world a future, filled with a rich language and the opportunities that I was lucky enough to receive. But the deaf community cannot do it alone. We need you to become our allies and join us in making the world more knowledgeable. We need you to join us, to fight with us and for us in the ongoing battle of affording children what they need to thrive. So So before I go, I want to teach you two very simple but important signs. The first is love. The second, yourself. Follow me. Love yourself. Brilliant. A+s all around. Thank you.
Janelle Monáe's Trailblazer Award Acceptance Speech 2018. Janelle Monáe is a queer black pop artist celebrated for challenging gender boundaries and advocating for LGBTQ rights, with a host of awards and nominations from organizations like BET, Billboard Music, ASCAP, and ACE, among others, received the Trailblazer Award at the Billboard Women in Music Award ceremony in New York City. In 2018, in their acceptance speech, Monáe not only acknowledged the achievement, but also reflected on their growth as an influential artist. They emphasized the importance of exploring one's identity and creating spaces for others, expressing gratitude to their community and powerful women who inspired their innovative music. Monáe's speech highlighted the power of self-discovery and the significance of fostering inclusivity and creativity. Monáe has been recognized for their commitment in the LGBTQ community and for challenging gender boundaries, in addition to their empowering music and self-love lyrics. Monáe's acceptance speech for the 2018 Trailblazer Award was certainly one for the books. The pop icon used their time on stage to not only acknowledge the achievement, but also to share the things she'd learned during her time as an influential artist. I've discovered the most difficult trail to blaze is the one that takes us inside of who we are individually and as a whole, they said. Being a trailblazer is about diving into spaces unseen and undiscovered, which can be very exciting and frightening at the same time. For me, that meant uncovering aspects of who I am in order to create spaces for others. During the speech, Monáe credited their community, as well as other powerful women, for their inspiration in creating innovative music.
Wow. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. It is such an honor to be in this room right now, to be in this room with so many cool-ass women. Thank you so much, Tiara. The way you're innovating right now is so inspiring to me. Keep going. Go further than where I'm taking it. Your artistic vision and you, just so unique. And I just want to thank you for sacrificing your time to present this award to me. It means the world. Thank you. I want to say congratulations to each of you amazing women who we are celebrating tonight. It's an honor to share this night with you. And thank you, Billboard, so much for this acknowledgement. I'm hesitant always to take in any praise or adulation because I'm always aware that it's not something one can rely on or build a strong foundation on. And my work has always been about my community, just as much as it is about me. You know, a writer once described me as hidden and guarded. And I was like, should I be offended? Is that cool? I just didn't know. And there was even this whole profile piece done on me when I released my last album that basically amounted to, maybe she might be human. But that conversation was really about my own battles with perfectionism and failure. And I've discovered the most difficult trail to blaze is the one that takes us inside of who we are, individually and as a whole. Being a trailblazer is about diving into spaces unseen and undiscovered, which can be very exciting and frightening at the same time. For me, that meant uncovering aspects of who I am in order to create spaces for others. Trailblazing comes with many risks and uncertainties. It often includes long periods of doubt, bitter battles with anxiety and depression, and calls for blind faith and a good therapist. I struggled for a long time to write this album, but I hope that by doing so, I've created a little more light for someone else trying to discover themselves. Last night I was in DC and I met a young teenage girl, a black girl, and she told me that she had came out to her grandmother and to her mother because of the album. And I think moments like those, they remind you, no matter what's going on in your life, how bad you're feeling, that by us walking in our truths, it can sometimes give the next person the courage to walk in theirs. So I accept this as an affirmation for all the dirty computers out there. I accept this for the dirty computers whose truth I want to help tell. Our brothers and sisters who have been pushed to the margins of society, whether they're women or members of the LGBTQIA movement, or immigrants or disabled people, or anyone who's been bullied or ostracized or made to feel alone, this is for you. Thank you to my wonderful team who supported me the whole way through, even when I was afraid. And guess what? It was mostly women who did. I want to say thank you to the magnificent Julie Greenwald. Thank you, Kelly Andrews. Thank you to my publicist, Cara Donato, Nina Webb, Brianna, Juliet, Michelle Nordia, Camille, Jamila, Lanray, Kelly Novak in court. And thank you, Wonderland, for being the best trail mates I could ever ask for. Thank you, Dirty Computers. God bless y'all.
6. Greta Thunberg's speech at the United Nations Climate Action Summit 2019. Greta Thunberg is a 20-year-old Swedish climate activist best known for confronting world leaders to take action to mitigate climate change and its effects.
Greta gained international recognition for her efforts to address climate change and hold world leaders accountable. In 2019, she delivered a powerful speech at the United Nations Climate Action Summit, passionately criticizing global leaders for their inaction. Thunberg's poignant words accused them of stealing the future of younger generations and urged them to take immediate and meaningful action to combat climate change. Her speech resonated with audiences worldwide, exemplifying the determination and urgency needed to tackle one of the most pressing challenges of our time. "You have stolen my childhood and my dreams with your empty words," she said. "You're failing us, but young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you."
Greta, your first climate strike was a lonely event a little over a year ago. And in the intervening time, you have sparked the interest of millions, literally, of children around the globe, demanding action for climate change. What's your message to world leaders today?
My message is that we'll be watching you. This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight? You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe. The popular idea of cutting our emissions in half in 10 years only gives us a 50% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees and the risk of setting off irreversible chain reactions beyond human control. 50% may be acceptable to you, but those numbers do not include tipping points, most feedback loops, additional warming hidden by toxic air pollution, or the aspects of equity and climate justice. They also rely on my generation sucking hundreds of billions of tons of your CO2 out of the air with technologies that barely exist. So a 50% risk is simply not acceptable to us, we who have to live with the consequences. To have a 67% chance of staying below a 1.5 degrees of global temperature rise, the best odds given by the IPCC, the world had 420 gigatons of CO2 left to emit back on January 1st, 2018. Today that figure is already down to less than 350 gigatons. How dare you pretend that this can be solved with just business as usual and some technical solutions? With today's emissions levels, that remaining CO2 budget will be entirely gone within less than 8.5 years. There will not be any solutions or plans presented in line with these figures here today, because these numbers are too uncomfortable and you are still not mature enough to tell it like it is. You are failing us. But the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you. We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now, is where we draw the line. The world is waking up, and change is coming whether you like it or not. Thank you.
7. Rocky Balboa's motivational speech to his son, from the film Rocky Balboa, 2006.
Sylvester Stallone portrayed the beloved boxing character Rocky Balboa in the 2006 film of the same name. In a pivotal scene, Rocky delivers a motivational speech to his son, emphasizing the harsh realities of life and the importance of perseverance. He highlights the need to rise above adversity, stating that life can be challenging and relentless. But success is not solely determined by how hard one is hit. Rocky's speech transcends the film's narrative, resonating with audiences by conveying a timeless message about belief in oneself and the ability to overcome obstacles.
The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows, Rocky says, looking at his son. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are. It will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit.
Although the speech is central to the movie and its plot, the message extends beyond the Hollywood allure.
Look who's here. Anthony. Have you seen your father? He's in the back.
It's unbelievable. You're full. You're doing good. You're enjoying everything, all right? Excuse me. How you doing? Glad you come by.
Can I talk with you?
Sure.
Can we do it outside? So you're going through with this?
Yeah, I start training tomorrow.
Hey, Rock, I made some connections. I could make some money on this, endorsements.
Absolutely, do that.
Thank you, Rock.
Sure.
Okay.
So you're nervous about the fight?
They're scared to death.
You don't look scared?
Well, you ain't supposed to.
Then you don't have to do it.
Yeah, well, I think I do.
You know, living with you, it hasn't been easy. People see me, but they think of you. Now with all this going on, this is gonna be worse than ever.
It don't have to be.
No, sure it does.
Why? You got a lot going on, kid.
Oh, what, my last name? That's the reason I got a decent job. That's the reason why people deal with me in the first place. Now I start to get a little ahead. I start to get a little something for myself, and this happens. Now I'm asking you as a favor not to go through with this, okay? This is only gonna end up bad for you, and it's gonna end up bad for me.
You think I'm hurting you?
Yeah, in a way you are.
It's the last thing I ever wanted to do.
I know that's not what you want to do, but that's just the way that it is. Don't you care what people think? Doesn't it bother you that people are making you out to be a joke and that I'm gonna be included in that? Do you think that's right? Do you?
You ain't gonna believe this. But you used to fit right here. I'd hold you up and say to your mother, this kid's gonna be the best kid in the world. This kid's gonna be somebody better than anybody ever knew. And you grew up good and wonderful. It was great just watching you every day. It was like a privilege. Then the time come for you to be your own man and take on the world, and you did. But somewhere along the line, you changed. You stopped being you. You let people stick a finger in your face and tell you you're no good. And when things got hard, you started looking for something to blame, like a big shadow. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you wanna be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that. I'm always gonna love you no matter what. No matter what happens. You're my son, you're my blood. You're the best thing in my life. But until you start believing in yourself, you ain't gonna have a life. Don't forget to visit your mother.